All right, but let's go and get the show on the road. So today's class is going to go over basically how to create a Facebook ad, some of the top methods that you can actually utilize on here. So we're going to start from scratch and go through the Facebook ad option on command. The good note is this class won't take a full hour or anything of that sort. All right, but this will actually help to go through and really kind of tweak everything even further on here. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is hop inside KW command. All right, let me go ahead and allow access on here. Everyone, nope, that's probably what's going on. So I'm going to deny that. Thank you. Perfect. So I'm going to allow everyone to come in. Just don't ask to be a presenter if that's okay. There you go. So it looks like a lot of people are trying to present real quick. All right, so once we're actually inside command, so we're going to agent.kw.com. All right, so agent.kw.com, and that'll give us access to the back end of our command account like we've always had on here. All right, now the first thing that we'll want to do before we actually create the Facebook ad is we want to do a little bit of prep work on here. All right, so once we actually start on here, there we go. All right, so I'm going to click on my name at the top right. All right, so once I click on my name up here, then we can click on that settings option. So we want to make sure that our information is up and running and everything is set up properly for this to automatically display over on all of our ads that we're going to create. All right, and more importantly, we want to make sure that our Facebook account is linked up on here too. All right, so I'm going to click the settings option on here real quick. Here we go. All right, so I went through and I redid the call-in option on here, so now everyone should be able to hear. All right, so I went through and I completely started from scratch for you guys to help out. All right, so once we're under here, thank you, there we go. All right, so once we're under our settings account on here, it's automatically going to pull up all of our connected applications. All right, so once we actually pull up the connected applications, we'll want to make sure that our Facebook account is linked on here properly. All right, so if we scroll down, it's going to be near the bottom down here under Marketing Automation. We want to ensure that we have our Facebook Ad Manager set up correctly on here. All right, guys, if you cannot hear, all right, once again, this will help out with everything to call in, or of course, there's even a call-in option from your computer on there too. Just make sure that you have all audio is set up. All right, so under the Facebook Ad Manager section on here, this is where we can actually access everything immediately. All right, so once we click on this, we can actually see I'm currently managing this right now, but if you're not automatically linked up, you can always click the Connect Account option, and that'll allow you to connect this out immediately. Okay, so once we actually see all of this, as you can see, we have all of our options where we can go through and manage everything immediately. All right, so I'm currently managing this. I can see that I'm under my account on here where I can actually view all of my campaigns. I can actually view all the different posts that are coming out, but this is going to link with our actual campaigns that we can utilize immediately. All right, now once again, if you're not synced up on here, so I'll disconnect this real quick. All right, then you can go through and click on that Connect Account option. Now, one thing to note on here, whenever you are connecting the account, so I'm going to click on Connect Account on here. All right, you'll need to sign in with your Facebook account. I'm already logged in, so that's why it automatically syncs me up on here. All right, so once we actually click on this, all right, then we can access all of our different accounts immediately. One thing you need to note is you have to be an admin of this Facebook account. All right, you must be an admin on here. All right. Now, as long as you're an admin, this will sync up immediately for you to actually utilize. All right, so as long as it says that you're connected on here and everything is managed, you are all good to go. All right, everything is 100% correct. Everything's perfect on here. All right. Now, with that being said, once this is completely up and running and everything is set up properly on here, now you can actually go under your campaign section to create this brand new campaign. All right, so once you go into this campaign section, this will allow you to access that immediately. All right, so I'm going to click on the campaigns option on here. All right. And once we do that, now we can actually create this new campaign. Now, a couple things to note. One thing that I always suggest, all right, a lot of people are trying to ask about calling in. I'll post this one more time on here. This is the number that you can call into in case the audio is not working on there. A lot of people are actually going through, all right, and trying to present in the class. If you can stop doing that, that'd be fantastic. So I really appreciate that. All right, once again, here's the number to call into. All right, it'll be at the very top up there as well. All right, so once we're actually in the back end on here, this is where we can actually create our Facebook ad. Now, a couple things to note on here. Whenever you're creating a Facebook ad, though, a few things to kind of look at before you do it. You're going to have two options. All right, you're going to have the lead capture form option. All right, or you're going to have the option where it's basically just going over to a landing page or going over to whatever URL you want to utilize. Now, most agents will typically utilize the lead capture form option. That'll allow you to actually access this and really drive over as many leads as possible. All right, so a couple of things that you can actually do at the end of the day. All right, so first thing first, what we'll want to do on here is click on the consumer option. Before you even start an ad, you can actually set this up as a landing page. So if you're doing a listing, for instance, if you're doing an event, all right, you'll be able to actually utilize this for a landing page on here. All right, so I'm going to click on this consumer option real quick. All right, and once we do that, then we can actually create this new landing page immediately. All right, so I'm going to click on create a new site on here. Here we go. All right, and then I'm going to create a standalone landing page. Now, the main way that most agents will typically do this at the end of the day is really to advertise pretty much just kind of any type of listing. All right, that is the kind of a premier way that most agents will really utilize this, and it tends to get the most amount of traffic as well, too. One second, guys. All right, now once again, you obviously can go out and you can do any type of like CMA type option, but most people will typically advertise a listing on here so that way you can actually go through and really drive as many buyers back as possible. All right, so one way that I usually suggest this is obviously going through a standalone page or a landing page at the end of the day to make everything a little bit simpler. All right, so if I use the standalone page option, now I can click create page on here and that'll allow us to access this immediately. All right, so once I click on create page on here, all right. So now we can actually go through and really create any type of landing page that we want to drive people back. Yep, and a question just came in. You can use a landing page as well for a webinar or seminar registration. That is also an option on here too. So if you want to do any type of Facebook ad that'll actually drive people over to sign up for the webinar, that's no problem at all. And if you guys are seeing any type of lag, it's because I'm moving extremely slow because I see a bunch of people in the chat. They're saying they're having some issues with hearing on everything. So I'm not going as quick as I normally would on here. All right, so in this case, though, if we happen to go through, if we want to make a quick landing page, what I usually suggest just to make it a little bit easier is I can kind of use this branded header on here. If you're going to advertise, like say, for instance, a listing, I'll use the listing option on here too. And then I always suggest... And if you're doing a Facebook ad and you're using the lead capture form, you really don't have to have this. But if you're just going to use this landing page for a dual purpose, if you're going to use it for the Facebook ad, All right, and then for instance, if you're also going to use it for your own landing page experience, it's no problem at all. All right, then I'm going to add inside a lead form on here too. See if I can get this on real quick. Looks like it might not. Okay, perfect. It did come up. Had the circle with the line through it, so I didn't think it was actually going to display on there. All right, so once this actually pulls up, now we can go through and customize our landing page even further on here. All right, so I'm going to click on the configure widgets option down here at the bottom right. All right, so once I click on configure widgets real quick, all right, now I can go through and update any of the widgets. So I usually suggest using the branded header like we're seeing on here, the listing widget, and then the lead form if you are going to advertise a listing on here. All right, so under the branded header section that we have, all right, I can put inside whatever the header might be. So in this case, I usually suggest going through and just putting inside maybe, for instance, your actual address that you want to put for the header on here. All right, so I'm going to go through first before I even put inside that header. I'm going to browse for a listing. Now you can go through and you can search for whatever listing you might want to look for on here. So I'm just going to search for a simple one real quick. So I'm going to do 123 Main Street. All right, I'm going to choose whatever listing might pop up on here. So let's see if I can find a good one real quick. All right, so it looks like these might be commercial type ones real quick. So I'm just going to type in 123 and see what comes up. All right. And if anyone's having any type of issues right now watching this, or if they're having any type of issues hearing everything, all right, just put inside the chat section. It is being recorded, so it will be accessible later on tonight as well, too. All right, so I'm going to use this one real quick. I'm just going to use this 123 Carrington. It's just basically an example real quick. All right. So now that I have this set up, now I can actually choose what image I want to utilize for the header image on here. So I'm just going to use the first one that'll pop up. So I'm going to save and apply this real quick. So that way it'll automatically pull up all of our information on here. All right, and then now I can actually go back over to our branded header, and I'm going to put inside that address on here too, just 123 Carrington, just to make it simple. All right, so this one actually looks like it's sold, but I'm just going to use it regardless, just to add something in real quick. So once again, you don't have to actually do anything on here with the landing page. It's just another option. All right, so you don't have to do anything with the landing page on here, completely up to you. All right, but I'm just going to save everything real quick just to have an additional landing page. All right, now a couple things I always like to point out. Obviously, when we get to that actual Facebook ad, you're going to have two options. You're going to have the lead capture form, and then you're just going to have the option to basically bring people back over to the landing page instead. Now, landing page on here really doesn't have to be an actual page like we're creating right now. You could actually go over and you could add inside another URL from your website. All right, that is always an option on here too. All right, but I'm just going to go and save this real quick. So I'm going to save and apply once again, and I'm going to publish this landing page. All right, so let's say this is my listing that I'm utilizing. This is just an example of the one that I'm using on here. All right, so with that being said on here, once we actually pull this up, I have 123 Carrington, so I'm going to save this. This is my current landing page that I want to utilize over here. Here we go. All right, and once again, I can access this at any time on here. All right, so now we've got our landing page created. And once again, you don't have to use a landing page for this. Any type of URL that we might want to drive people back to, All right, we could actually just use over on our site pages too. So I could pull up my actual command site on here. And if I pull up the command site, I could just search for that actual listing on here as well. All right, so if I come on here, I can just search for whatever listing it is I might want to drive people back over to, and I could utilize that instead. All right, the landing page option is just another, basically, like the person actually said inside here, are these landing pages just small web pages where you're sending clients who have that link through a Facebook ad. So kind of. So this is actually just going to be a one-off website purely for, in this case, the listing that we want to advertise. All right, so on here we can actually utilize this for pretty much anything and everything. I know earlier someone in the chat section actually said, could I use this for, an event or webinar type marketing? And you sure can. All right, so you can actually just have a lead form on there and change that out. But if I want to go through here, I'm going to type in, I'll use my current location around here. So I can just pull up any type of listing that might be coming up. That is not my current location, but I appreciate that it came up on that. There we go. So let's see if there's any listings around here. So I could have done like this listings, for instance. Or I'll do this one. This is a nice looking home. All right, so I could have actually just come through here. All right, and I could just actually copy this. All right, so I could go through and I could copy this URL to utilize on our Facebook ad too. All right, so that's always an option depending on what you might want to drive people back over to. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to X out of this real quick. All right, and now I'm actually going to go back over to our campaign section. All right, so I'm going to go back over to our campaign section on here. Here we go. And a question just came in, can I create a Facebook ad to advertise the KDB app? You sure can. All right, so once I click on the campaigns option on here, perfect. All right, now we can actually create a new campaign. All right, so now I'm going to click on that create a new campaign option at the top right up here. Now, a couple things to note. Whenever you're actually doing the Facebook ad, one of the main reasons you might want to do it through command instead of through Facebook directly is KW is actually going to have their own kind of corporate account at the end of the day with Facebook that you'll be linked with. So the good part is, since it's all under that KWRI account, you're actually one of, basically 170,000 potential agents that'll be under that account on here. All right, so the good part about that is when Facebook sees that, they're not just going to see you as an individual, they're going to see you as part of this giant corporation, so they're going to give you a better rate. All right, so that's the good part about everything. Now, the cool part about Facebook is it's always been pretty cost effective. Even before it was on, command and everything of that sort, it was still an extremely cost effective pay-per-click option. All right, a lot of people would utilize this even instead of Google AdWords. All right, but if I click on the create a new campaign option, now we can actually see the types of campaigns we may want to work with on here. And the main one we're focusing on today is that social ad or paid option on here. All right, so I'm going to click on that social ad / paid option real quick. All right, just so I can access this even further. All right, so I'm going to click on this. And once I click on it, now it'll automatically pop up with all these different options for us. So if we want to advertise a listing on here, we can. All right, if we want to advertise multiple listings, that's an option too. We can attract listings, attract talent, do brand awareness. For the person that was asking earlier about webinars and event type options, there's an event awareness option on here too. You can attract buyers. All right, or in this case, for the person, Burnett, that was actually talking about the KW app, you could do an other option on here too to advertise the app as well. All right, so I'm going to say advertise listing because that's the example I'm using. I'm using 123 Carrington. Although to tell you the truth, I don't know if that'll actually pop up since it says it was sold. So I'm going to use this one instead as an example, since it looks like this one is active on here for me to use. All right, and once we do that, then we can advertise the listing, and then we'll go through Facebook on here immediately. So I'm going to click on Facebook. Now, the other good part is if you also are linked with Instagram, if you have an Instagram for Business account, all right, then you can actually go over here and utilize this too. All right, so if I want to sync this up and I'm linked with Facebook, obviously I have Instagram linked with Facebook on here, I can advertise on both platforms. All right, because since Instagram is now owned by Facebook, that's another option on here as well. All right, so I'm going to put inside my title, I put inside what I actually want to advertise on here. I said this is where I actually want my campaign to run. And I'm going to click that Setup Campaign option now. Yep, and a question just came in, so the event awareness button would be the one to advertise my webinar. That's correct. Yep, that'd be a great one to advertise a webinar on there. All right, so I'm going to click Setup Campaign real quick, and now this is going to allow us to go through and set up that campaign immediately. Now, since I went through and I specified that this was actually going to be for a listing, that is why this came up immediately with the KWLS 2.0 for me to pull up that listing. So I swapped this out. Originally, I did 123 Carrington for the landing page, and I swapped it out whenever I was actually looking on my KW command site for an active listing since this one was sold. So I'm going to see if I can pull that up real quick. I'm going to say we're going to search for all listings on here. See if this will pull up for me to utilize, and it did. Perfect. All right, so here's that listing that I could use right away. So now I could just click Select on here, and this will help out immediately. All right, so I've selected that, and now we automatically have this added in. Now, the cool part about this is once you actually add this in, all right, it'll automatically pull up some of the information from the MLS for you. And a question came in, even though that's not a KW listing, that's correct. So the KWLS 2.0 will actually pull over just about every listing that's on all the different boards. So if you noticed on there, when I searched for this particular listing, when I searched for 2619 East Jackson Street, all right, it actually came up with another listing that was in California as well, too. All right, so in most cases, whenever you're actually pulling this up, previously it would only pull up listings under your MLS, all right, under your board that you have linked for the IDX. All right, but in this case, with the KWLS 2.0, it's actually going to pull up pretty much any listing that's accessible on all the different boards. Now, the good part about that is, since you're pulling it up from there, all right, this will help out tremendously if you are advertising another agent's listing that's at another brokerage, all right, if you might be co-listing on something, whatever it might be. All right, this is going to help out so much. So now you can actually just make it even easier for yourself. Because if you notice, now I have my name and goal already set up on here. So I've got my name set up as obviously 2619 East Jackson Street. I've got my goal set up as a listing. I already have the listing selected on here. And now it's automatically going to give me some of the information. All right, so on here, it has my main copy. All right, so this is automatically showing from that particular MLS listing. All right, here's the description that's coming over. And luckily enough, this is actually under 250 characters. So you'll have 250 characters to work with, and whenever you start to update anything, it'll automatically display on the right-hand side as well. All right, so we can go through and change anything we want to. You can add inside additional emojis if you want to. You can add in pretty much anything and everything you may want to on here. All right, so a lot of people will usually say to use a couple emojis to make it stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to type inside home on here so I can add inside one. All right, completely up to you at the end of the day. All right, now as you can see, the recommended character count is about 125 or less. And the reason for that is based on where this is going to display. So on the right-hand side, we have an example of what this will look like over on Facebook. All right, so this is currently under the web feed. So if I change this to mobile on here, if you notice, it has a little ... on here where it's not displaying everything. All right, so on the mobile side, 125 characters may be perfect for this. All right, so I always like to point this out at the end of the day. But then again, over here, we can also put inside our headline if we want to. All right, so I can actually go through and just see what's going to drive people to actually click on this. All right, so the good part about this is once you actually link up the listing and it's going to bring over your description, you're going to have some of the information that you can automatically add in. All right, so for the headline on here, I'm just putting brand new construction in the Milk District. So that way people will know this is a brand new home that's over, basically located near where I am right now. All right, now as you can see, headlines over 40 characters may be cut off on here. All right, so it looks like we're good to go. I always like to look at the mobile view on here because typically under the web view, it's going to give you more characters that you can utilize. So I always like to look at the mobile view to see what this will actually look like. All right, and I'm going to change a little bit of this. I think we're at 181 characters. It says I want to be around 125. All right, so I'm going to move that out real quick so that way I can see if this will actually look good on here. So that looks perfect now. All right, and then of course, once we add inside our headline, whatever we want to actually kind of drive people to come over here. All right, then we can put inside our description right below that as well. All right, now the cool part about this is they actually have suggestions that you can utilize. As you can see, you could be coming home to this. We can shuffle this as well. Schedule a private tour with me today. All right, they have a bunch of different items that are kind of just call to action type items for that particular link. All right, now once again, you're going to have 250 characters that you can work with. All right, and one thing to note is the description will be shown in some placements. So not every place will this description actually display. All right, so obviously it's going to display over inside the news feed. It may potentially display on some mobile ads, but in some cases, this description will not actually show for you. All right, so for the description on here, I usually suggest keeping it short and sweet. So some of these different items that they have on here that are kind of call to action type options, all right, you can utilize this. All right, so maybe I'm going to use this schedule a private tour with me today. So I'm going to use that suggestion real quick. I always like to put inside an exclamation point just to make it a little bit more excited on here. All right, so I've got the main copy. Wow, brand new construction on the Milk District. You can own a beautiful new home for less than rent. And actually, I'm going to paste this back in. I saved that real quick. Awesome, and that is below or just around the 125 on here. I'm going to take this out real quick. It's not hitting that 125, so I want to try and see if I can change it a little bit. I'm going to take out whatever I can on here to hit that. New construction home. I want to make people know that that is a new construction home option. All right, so I'm going to change a little bit on here. I want to try and keep it under 125. All right, and I always like to use a couple of emojis on here as well. You can use as many as you want to. Some people will use it in the beginning. Some people will use it at the end. They'll use it in both. All right, completely up to you. I'm just going to add in one to add in a little extra. So for the headline on here, I definitely want to add inside any type of adjective that I can. So that's why I have brand new on here. So I want to make sure that everyone knows what they're looking at. And I capitalized that. It was already capitalized, which is perfect, but I left it capitalized. That way people can see exactly where this is located, what it is, what will make it stand out. And then for the description on here, you don't have to use any of the suggestions, but really just a call to action on here. Typically for the call to action, we want to put inside some type of option for what they need to do. So in here on here, I just put, schedule a private tour with me today. Basically letting them know what they should do next. Or I can actually say, click below for more information on this amazing home. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click this Save Add Text option real quick. All right, so now I have the add text all completed. So even though it says configured, we have the little check mark in here, so we're perfect. And now we happen to have the add media section. Now, in most cases, it's just going to come up with one image on here. All right, it could be an image that you've uploaded yourself. Since I pulled this from the KWLS 2.0, it's automatically that first image that was available on there. And you can even add inside more, or you can add inside your own video on here too. All right, so I'm going to leave it as an image though. All right, if you want to add inside additional images, you can just click on the Add More option. If you notice, we have a couple more from that listing that we can actually display on here. It's a nice looking home on here. If they didn't say it was a duplex, I wouldn't have even known. So there you go. All right, now we can see where do we want to put our DBA logo. So in most cases, you'll need to have the DBA logo on here. This is automatically just coming in with the Keller Williams logo. So more than likely, you want to put inside your actual office DBA logo to utilize. All right, we can specify, do we want to put the logo over on the left? Do we want to put it on the right over here? How exactly do we want to display this at the end of the day? All right, so I usually suggest putting it at the right. You know, it's kind of like, obviously look at the image and where it's going to stand out the most as well, too. All right, but I always like to put it at the bottom right because basically it's just kind of like reading from the top to the bottom, usually going top left to the top right, and then so on and so forth, like you're kind of reading down a document. All right, so I've got this one image set up. That's all I'm going to do. I just want to give them a little bit of a tease as to why they should actually click on here. So I'm going to click Save Add Media. All right, so now we actually have the listing set up. All right, we've got our name and goal. We have the listing linked. We have the text. We have the media. Now we can actually go through on the Facebook ad side. So I'm going to click on Configure for Facebook ad, and this is where we can see, all right, what account do we have linked up? All right, so once we have that account linked up, then we can actually specify, all right, which page are we going to utilize? All right, so I'm going to pull up my page on here. So I'm going to pull up Scott Leroy Marketing. All right, so you can pull up your page from the drop-down list, and then you'll be able to actually choose, do you want to use a Facebook lead generation form, or do you want to use the site or landing page? Now, a couple things I always like to point out, and this is the one way that I can always tell if someone used a Facebook lead generation form or if they used the site or landing page. All right, so if you're using the Facebook lead generation form, that'll automatically allow people to go through and basically, put inside their info from Facebook to access this further. All right, so whenever they click on this and they want to learn more, then it's going to auto-populate with their information to then pull over to command for you. Now, if you use the site or landing page, the biggest giveaway that someone used the site and landing page instead of the lead generation form is that the amount of impressions you're going to have is going to be way beyond the amount that you'll typically have with the lead generation form on here. All right, so for the site or landing page option, if we use that, this is basically going to give you as many eyeballs as possible to see this particular ad. All right, because sometimes people will say, hey, I spent $30 on an ad and I had about 30,000 people look at the ad, but I didn't get one lead from it. All right, and that usually means that it's going after as many people as possible. But if I use that lead generation form instead, and that'll automatically allow us to basically go through and say, hey, this is the one that we're going to utilize. This is everything that'll drive over that traffic to our site, but more importantly, capture their information from Facebook directly. All right, so now we're going to have this call to action label on here, so we can choose whichever one we want to. I always suggest just using Learn More. Now, obviously, for the person I was talking about, the event awareness, obviously using the sign up option might be a good alternative for that instead of Learn More. All right, but I'm going to use the Learn More option instead. And then we can actually put inside our follow-up destination URL, or we can choose a landing page on here too. All right, so that's where you get kind of the alternative option. So the reason I always suggest using the lead generation form is this is going to get you the most amount of people that'll actually sign up on that form to come over to command directly as a brand new lead. And then you're also going to have the follow-up destination URL. So then you can take them to that listing landing page that you created. You can take them over to your website, wherever you want them to go. All right, so since this is about that 2619 East Jackson Street, I'm going to go and copy this real quick. So I've copied that URL. All right, let's get rid of that. I'm going to come back. I'm going to paste this inside real quick. So now I'm just going to use this URL from our website. So the good part is whenever someone goes on here and they actually put inside the lead generation form, they fill everything out, then it's automatically going to say, hey, click here, and it's going to take them over to where they can view more information. So the one thing that I always see agents doing, and this is obviously like a marketing 101, is whenever you want to capture their information, you'll take them back to a lead capture form. All right, so that's what the kind of standard landing page is. Whenever someone wants to learn more about something, then they'll click on this, they'll go over to the page, they'll fill out the information, and then they receive like a free ebook or a free CMA or whatever it may be. Well, in this case, since you're already getting their information from Facebook, you really don't have to actually do that, all right, because you're already going to get it. So on here, we can actually then just drive them back over to our website so they can view all the information immediately. Now, once we have that set up, so we have the page we want to display, we have our destination on here, 99 times out of 100, I would highly suggest using that lead form on here. All right, now we can actually target everything. So this is automatically pulling up with our location over here. All right, but I can use the custom settings, and I typically suggest this, all right, because at the end of the day, if you're utilizing the custom settings on here, this will allow you to actually go through and specify who will be able to see everything. All right, so with that being said, now we can actually go through and I can see, all right, where is this going to be located? So I've got Orlando, Florida on here. That's perfect. I can specify the radius, all right? And the lowest you can go is 15 on here. You can't go any lower than 15 miles. So basically that's going to put a pin inside Orlando, Florida, and then it's going to give us a 15-mile radius, northeast, southwest, northeast, northwest, so on and so forth. All right, but more importantly, outside of just going after anyone and everyone, then we can actually change the interest on here too. All right, so if I click on Add or Change Interest, all right, now I can go through and I can specify a couple items on here. So unlike on Facebook ads, if you ever run a Facebook ad before, you're able to go through and specify the interest, you're able to specify who you don't want to display it for. So this is going to be the easier method of getting that Facebook ad up and running really quick. All right, so once we click on the interest option on here, it's going to show all the different interests that are available for us, and then it'll show the estimated audience as well. All right, now this is not the estimated audience of everyone. So this, there's not 547 million people just inside this little 15-mile radius in Orlando. But this is going to show for basically anyone and everyone. So these are all the interests that people may have. So you can start to search for anything you want to. Now, the one thing I always suggest is whenever you're looking for this, I typically suggest searching for or and not and. Because if you click on or, so if I type in home, for instance, and I see what words may come up. So I want to see people that are interested in home, maybe, home repair, some people that may be looking for that. I believe there's one on here for new construction as well, too. Oh, maybe not. Is it new homes? Let's see what's under here. Nothing under new. How about that? All right. I was hoping there might be on there. I could have sworn there was something under new construction. All right, so I'm going to come on here. I'm going to say real estate investing, real estate development, just in general. I'm going to hold off on real estate broker. But you can actually go through and add inside any that you want to on here. Let me type in homes real quick and see if anything comes up. I feel like some of these might not be searching properly. Let me delete that. All right, so I'm going to scroll down. They're all alphabetized to make everything a little bit easier. So maybe I want to search after people that are currently in an apartment that are renting that might be looking to purchase soon. All right, so I might look for apartments.com, apartment list, apartment guide. All right, so I'm going to scroll down. So there might be a little bit of lag on here, so I apologize. I'm scrolling pretty quickly. Here we go. Home construction is what I was looking for. I was typing in new construction. All right, so I definitely want people, especially since this is a brand new home, people that might be interested in home construction on here. All right, or maybe home improvement as well. Maybe they're looking for stuff to improve their home, but then they look at this and they just say, hey, you know what? This one's already created, or already not created, already built. Everything is set up properly. We can just use that. So I usually suggest at the minimum utilizing 10. All right, at the bare minimum, just finding 10 that may work for you. Even if it's something as simple as like house hunting on here. All right, maybe I want people that are interested in homes.com. All right, so scroll up and down. You can see all the additional kind of interests that are available, and more importantly, the estimated audience over here. Now remember, this is going to give you an estimated audience of pretty much anyone and everyone. So this isn't going to be everyone within your little radius on here, unfortunately. But the good part is, now that I have this set up, this ad will now display inside the news feed for anyone in Orlando, Florida, within a 15-mile radius of Orlando, that's interested in one of these. I believe it was 11 or 12. I think it's 11 that I chose. 11 different interests. All right, so the reason that I said to put or and not and is that if someone is interested in homeowner association, but they're not interested in home improvement, this will still display for them. All right, so that way we can get as many people seeing it as possible on here. Now, once that is completed, we can just click the Save Facebook Ad option on here. All right, now we're almost done. So we have our ad over here on the right-hand side. Once again, you can always see the different options as well. All right, and then we have our duration and budget on here too. Now, one thing to note for Facebook, at the bare minimum, you have to do $1 per day. All right, so if I'm doing $30 on here, the bare minimum I can do is 30 days. All right, I can't do 35 or 40 days. All right, so it has to be at least $1 per day on here. All right, so with that being said, as you can see, we happen to have going from October 20th to October 30th on here. All right, so if that's what I want to use, and maybe I just want to do $10, so I want to do the bare minimum on here of $1. In fact, I don't think, no, that'll be perfect. All right, so I could do 10. Then I could save this duration and budget, and I'd be good to go. So if I save that, then this is saying, hey, starting tomorrow, it's automatically going to start to send this out, where it'll be $1 per day for me. Now, a couple things to note. Once this ad is live, so if I decided and I said this is what I want it to look like, and I click the Publish Campaign option, then that'll automatically publish this for me, and it'll start the next day. All right, but I'm going to save this as a draft real quick. All right, so a couple things that I always like to point out. All right, one, whenever you actually publish this campaign, you can't edit anything on here. All right, so you can't edit it once it's actually published. So I just want to give you a heads up on that. All right, it looks like it's still thinking right now, so hopefully it'll save. And number two, whenever it is published, there's not a way to delete it. What you can actually do, though, is pause it. All right, so in this case, if you pause the campaign, all right, then later on, if you say, hey, I actually just want to pause it, I want to start a different campaign, whenever that end date occurs, so if I make this active and then I pause it, once October 29th hits, any money that I haven't used will automatically go back to our ad spend on here for us to use. All right, basically our little ad pool. So then I could use that additional budget on any other ad. All right, so I won't have to actually use it from, my credit card again or anything of that sort. All right, so I didn't launch it live or anything of that sort because I don't want to post this out or anything like that and get it sent out on accident. All right, but whenever this actually comes through, then we'll be able to see our CPM, which is our cost per milli. So that's the cost per 1,000 impressions, basically how much it's going to cost for 1,000 people to see your ad. We'll see our CPC, which is the cost per click. All right, so how much it's going to cost each time someone clicked on the ad. Whether it was to fill out the form, whether it was to go over to a website, whether it was go over to your Facebook page. And then you'll see the cost per link click, or lead click in this case. All right, how much it's going to cost each time you get a brand new lead. All right, and then we'll be able to see our total spend versus how much we actually have on here. So how much we've already spent versus how much is left. All right, so a question came in. Do we have a video on how to attract listings in this case? We do. So I'll add that over inside when this is uploaded on YouTube later on tonight, because I know there was a bunch of issues with the audio in the very beginning. I'll add that in as well so you can access everything. All right, and then a question came in, what about housing being a special category for Facebook to approve the ad? On a great note, it'll automatically approve on here. So if you noticed, and then thank you for asking that, Monty, if you go over to Facebook.com and you actually do an ad through them directly, there is a special category that you have to select for housing in order for this to actually be approved. All right, so in this case, though, whenever this is actually approved through command, all right, then it'll automatically push out and you won't have to worry about actually selecting that housing special category. That'll automatically be included for you to utilize. All right, and the question just came on here. Let me go ahead and put this over here real quick. Awesome. All right, someone just asked about how to access this a little bit later on tonight. All right, so once again, to kind of go over everything that we talked about today, because I know there was a little bit of an issue in the very beginning getting everything started, so I apologize about that. All right, but what we first did to start, we first signed into command. All right, and then once we went into command, the first thing we did before anything is we double checked under our settings that everything was set up properly. All right, that we have our Facebook, back in connected. Now, one thing to note is you do have to be an admin of the page that you're looking to advertise on in order for it to connect properly. All right, once that was connected, all right, we did a listing one over here today. So what we actually went through is we took a look over at our consumer section and we created a listing landing page. That was the example one that I did for 123 Carrington on here. All right, so we created a listing landing page if you want to utilize the landing page. All right, or you can also just go back over to your site and find that listing as well. That's always an option on here too. And once again, since I'm just doing a listing one, that's why I did this, but you're not obligated to by any means. You can utilize any URL you want to drive people back to. I know a couple people were asking about events. Some people were asking about the app on there too. You can utilize any URL you'd like to at the end of the day. But once we completed that, then we went over our campaign section and we created that new campaign immediately. So once we clicked on create a new campaign, we used the social ad so we could start our ad on Facebook right away. All right, remember, if you have Instagram linked up as well to your Facebook account, since Instagram is owned by Facebook, then you can actually add this over on Instagram too. So you can actually send this out over on Instagram and Facebook. All right, today was purely about Facebook. All right, and that's when we got everything up and running to start immediately on here. All right, so that is going to be it for our Facebook 101 kind of advertisement class today. So I apologize in the very beginning about all the audio issues on there. Obviously, this will be uploaded a little bit later on today. All right, so I apologize if you weren't able to listen along right in the very beginning. All right, and a couple other questions came in before we end. Can we use other brokerage listings and still have our K2B logo at the bottom? In this case, if you are utilizing another brokerage listing, I would reach out to that person first and I would see if you are eligible to actually advertise their listing or if it's a co-listing on there. If it is a co-listing, then obviously you can utilize that because it would be part of your listing. If not, then you may want to remove that K2B logo on it to be safe. All right, and then a question came in. So when am I to expect to see on Facebook once I publish the campaign? All right, so once this is actually published on here, this is the one big thing that a lot of agents will always ask us, or a lot of people will always ask, is I publish the campaign, it's active, I'm not seeing it on my page. So this will actually not display on your Facebook page. This will display anywhere the ads would actually display instead. So this will show over inside the news feed. All right, over on the news feed, it'll show on the right-hand side as well, inside that little smaller column, and it'll say sponsored next to it as well. All right, but this is going to display for anyone that we are showing as our audience on there. Anyone that's, in this case, within that 15-mile radius of Orlando. All right, or anyone that is inside those interests inside that 15 miles. All right, so that'll be accessible on here for anyone and everyone to access. All right. And then one more question came in. No, you're all good to go on there. All right, so that is going to do it for our Facebook advertisement class for today.